What's good, YouTube? Jay Lee here. Got another Northwest podcast. So I went for a 20-minute walk a second ago, and like halfway through I realized I wanted to talk about a subject, so I was talking about it to myself. I was like, dang it, I got a lot of great info here and I don't have my phone. So I walked back. So basically I'm gonna do another walk. So I'm gonna be a little tired. So anyway, I wanted to, first of all, I want to say, appreciate you guys. I know the way I talk is not, is probably boring to a lot of people, but I think if you can get past the length and the longevity of what I say, things like that, or the way I talk, then you can probably dig out some gems and things that I'm saying. Hopefully, I guess that's the goal. That's the the hope, right? So I want to talk about education, specifically higher education, and I'm going to see if I can sort of match what I was talking about, talking to myself about on my walk. I just was considering the importance of higher education, the importance of I wouldn't even just say fully a higher education, but a quality education, right? You can get a good education on your own by yourself if you know how to study, if you know what type of books to look for. You can go on thriftbooks.com. I think it's called thriftbooks.com, and you can get like textbooks, older textbooks for like $5. Textbooks that would probably cost a college student $100, or nowadays maybe $120, or maybe more, who knows. I mean, it's crazy these days. But if you know how to study, and if you know what books to look for, you can teach yourself. You can be self-educated. Back in the day, people used to be self-educated, or I should say it was a lot less uncommon for people to be self-educated, 100, 200 years ago, etc., right? But then something came along where like this idea that you have to go to college to be higher level intellect and things like that, not necessarily true in today's day and age, not necessarily true in any time, really. If you have access to books, if you have access to learning materials, which now we do more than ever in history, it's a click away. It's free if you have an internet connection, for the most part. I mean, so much information out there. But now the problem is, how do you learn what information, right? What's the right information? And one of the pitfalls is you can get caught up in wrong information. You can get caught up in disinformation. You can get caught up in misinformation. You can get caught up in the wrong type of subjects, etc., right? So how do you know? I think we don't know. I think that it's a process of learning. I think that it's a process of trial and error. And then to some extent, it's a process of kind of filtering out good info, filtering out good sources of info, good sources of learning, right? But, I want to talk about the benefits of a college education, the benefits of higher education. And then I want to talk about education in general and why it's so important. So first of all, I know there's a lot of like kind of new push out there where it's like, oh, go to trade school, which I would recommend. Do go to trade school. Absolutely, right? But I will also say, if you can, and you got the time, take college courses, right? Take as many as you can, really. And I would say undergraduate courses, right? Focus on undergraduate courses. Because there's great general information out there. And the reason why I think having a teacher is so important, or it's very important, again, you can learn on your own, you can teach yourself, but it's not quite the same as having an actual teacher. The reason why I think it's important to have an actual teacher is because they filter through the information and they give you the important parts, right? So it's not that you don't have to read the textbook. I would absolutely recommend reading the textbook from cover to cover as much as you can. But they take the important points and they take the important gists, and if they're really good, then they can sort of decipher and even add on their own philosophy or add on their own worldview, which might or might not be helpful. I think teaching is a underappreciated art form. It's an underappreciated occupation. To me, how I kind of look at it is it's similar to oral traditions, right? And you have these societies and these families and clans, if you will, historically, and they had oral traditions. And one of the main important aspects of oral tradition is education and teaching, right? They pass down ways of living, teaching, philosophies, spirituality, and just aspects of their culture. And it was somewhere along the line, we got out of that clan era and we became little families who are now, even though we're right next to each other, right, next door to everybody, right, we got neighbors, right, we're separated. We don't talk to them, we don't spend time with them, we don't eat with them, right? So that clan thing has disassembled. So now who is I'm gonna stop talking here. I'm gonna get past this guy. I think this guy's working on his car. I'm gonna get past him, stop talking for just a second. Hold on, please. I can fast forward maybe 25, 30 seconds. Okay, yeah, I don't like to talk when I just don't like to talk when I'm around people, because I don't want people to think I'm weird or like, what's this guy talking about clans about, Anyway, so the teachers act as like as like elders, if you will. It's kind of how I view it. These guys know, they're experts on a subject. They know what they're talking about for the most part. I'm not saying there's no BS. I'm not saying there's no errors made by teachers, because there are. But they have a general expertise in one subject. And then they convey that to you, and you sit there for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and you listen, and then you do your work, right? It's good. It's a good system of learning. The problem where a lot of people have, though, is a lot of people get caught up in, oh, this is boring. Oh, how am I ever going to apply this to real life? And to some extent, that's true. To some extent, a lot of it, or I would say a good chunk of it, you're never going to apply to real life. But what it does, a lot of what it does is it trains your mind. Trains your mind how to think. It trains your mind to just be exercised in thinking, to be exercised in abstract thinking, right? Critical thinking, to learn the ability to compare and contrast, learn the ability to decipher truth from untruth, learn the ability to research, educate, and apply what you've learned. These are important skills in life. I think a lot of the reason why so many people are ignorant, so many people are sort of just coasting through life and actually to some extent to a good extent probably, why a lot of people are lost or depressed is because they don't know how to think. They don't know how to come up with an idea, figure things out. They don't know how to like apply things they've learned. They don't know how to sort of push themselves to do things. I think there's so much malady, mental illness even, people being stuck and stagnant in their spiritual life or their emotional life, etc. There's so much of this is caused because people are, how do I put it? They're uneducated. They're stagnant in their mental learning. If you are able to exercise your mind like a muscle, because it is a muscle, right? If you're able to train your brain, and you know, and even to a good extent, it's habits, right? It's, you know, hey, I got to write this goal down, or I got to write this idea down, or I need to figure out how to learn this thing and get this thing and apply this thing. A lot of that is habit. And what college and higher learning does is it trains you to be action oriented and thought and reason and logic and higher thinking oriented. This can help you in so many different ways. And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of the reason why people are depressed, a lot of the reason why people are stagnant in their life is because they don't have higher education. It's that, I believe it's to some extent, or to some good extent, it's that crucial for a lot of people. Now, is it life or death? No, right? No. What's life or death is you got to put food on the table, right? What's life or death is, you know, I got to pay my mortgage, right? And so many people get lost in that part of life. They get lost in like, God, got all my bills, etc., blah, blah, blah. They don't have time for learning things like that. And then again, like a lot of people make this decision, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, you know, or because of their parents, for whatever reason, just weren't raised to be all that educated or whatever. They drop out. They stop going to school. They don't see any importance in graduating high school, or they don't see any importance in graduating college. And financially, you know, statistically, people who graduate college are like, this is what we're told, you know, okay, we live in a different world now where like some YouTuber can come along or some TikToker can come along and talk about fur babies or something, or talk about, you know, anything, trees, right, anything, and then just get rich. But the reality is that probably still to this day, even though it's probably declining, I think the necessity for a college degree is getting less and less. But those who statistically have college degrees, they statistically make, I think, like 25% more money. Jesus Christ. Ugh. These guys. Maybe I'm too much in the street. I don't know. Anyway, I think they statistically make a lot more money than people who are not college educated. But on the one hand, you could say it's because they have a college degree, they have that paper, right? They have that diploma, they have that college diploma, right? Yes, that matters matters a lot on a job application. That's going to be the difference between getting you the job or not getting you the job. Unless you can exhibit that you have a skill set, right? Unless you can exhibit that you have the skill set, and you're better than others who are also competing for the job in that skill set. In that sense, the diploma can be trumped. The diploma can be beaten out by a skill set, or just functional competence or exhibited competence, right? If you go into a job and you're like, hey, this is my, I wanted this for a career, don't have a degree, but I'll beat anyone in here who's already working for you. I know what I'm doing. I got the skill set. There's a good chance you might get hired if the boss is a decent human being, right? But for the most part, those who have a college degree are going to make a lot more money, going to be a lot more successful, going to be a lot more well-rounded in their character, in their person, etc. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why that's so important. Because a lot of people who are uneducated are not happy. A lot of people who are uneducated, a lot of it is not the fact that like, hey, I don't know, what's the important. So here's one of the problems with education, is that there's a lot of grunt work, a lot of grunt work in education. When was the war of this fought, and what did this guy say, and what, all this stuff that's like you're gonna forget, all this stuff that's inconsequential. There's a lot of that, unfortunately. But if you can get past the grunt work, you get gems. You learn how to learn, right? One of the most important things about an education is you learn how to learn. And somebody who's educated, they're just better thinkers. They're better at figuring things out. They're better at reading people. They're better at understanding, and this isn't always the case, but they're better at understanding why things function the way they do. They're better at picking up good information, and they're just better at life, right? Whereas people who are uneducated, or at least I should say, don't have a higher education, they're a lot more, and it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't always mean that educated people are happier per se, because you can get caught up in too much thinking, overthinking, right? But they're better at figuring life out. They're better at figuring their own lives out. What I see a lot with uneducated people is they're often stuck. They're stuck in ways of thinking, ways of behaving, because to navigate life, you got to learn how to take care of your mental health. You got to learn how to take care of your emotional health. You got to learn how to, figure out how to entertain yourself in a quality way, right? If not, you just get stuck in these patterns of lower vibrations, that's just lower thinking, lower behavior. A lot of people, for instance, like a lot of people get stuck in smoking addiction or drinking addiction, and because they're not educated, they don't know why these things are so bad. They don't want to study, they don't want to learn. So that's just one example, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of a micro example of something that's macro. Like, if you don't want to learn, you're gonna take a lot of shortcuts in life. You're gonna take a lot of shorts in life, right? You're gonna short yourself a lot in life. You're going to probably waste a lot of time on ignorant things, right? Not to say that, anybody could do that. Educated people can do that. We're human. There's pitfalls out there. We fall into bad patterns. Happens. But when you learn how to learn, there's something within you that's like kick-started. That's like, there's something that, what I've found is that, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but there's something within you that I need to get something going. I need to figure something out for myself. I need to, it sort of sparks this thirst for improvement, thirst for learning, thirst for knowledge. And the more you sort of learn and the more you sort of do things, the more you realize how beneficial it is, right? Because knowledge is true. Francis Bacon said knowledge is power. It's true. It really is. Knowledge is power. And there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. I talked about this on a past podcast. There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, but having knowledge and sort of pursuing knowledge and even pursuing wisdom, right? Wisdom is more like knowledge applied through life experiences, learning. A lot of wisdom is gained from failure. A lot of wisdom is gained from, bad experiences, things like that. But knowledge, having knowledge and the ability to apply it, it is powerful. It is powerful because it can take you places. It can do things for you, So again, like when you get into higher education, you learn how to learn, and you learn how to think critically, think abstractly. You learn how to formulate concepts within yourself. You learn how to read and then apply what you've read. You learn how to, again, you learn how to think in general. But when you study certain subjects, you can apply that thinking into life, right? So this is one cool thing about learning in science is it's applicable, right? It's applicable. So you can take something you learned and then you can look outside and be like, wow, that's why that functions the way it does, right? This is why it's cool to be educated. This is why it's cool to be smart, because it's cool to know how something functions. It's cool to know why things are the way they are, right? And this is one of the things about learning, is it invokes a spirit of exploration within you, right? It invokes a spirit of exploration, right? And when you set out to fulfill, to quench that thirst for learning, exploration, you gain a lot of stuff along the way, right? It's powerful. It's self-powerful. Not in any type of narcissistic way. It could turn into that, right? It could turn into that. But in a type of way that makes you cool, makes you mysterious, makes you have depth, right? People who aren't deep thinkers don't have a lot of depth. It's not to say they can't be clever. It's not to say they can't succeed. But people who are educated have a lot of depth, and they know a lot of things. It's possible to know a lot of things. And then there's people who are educated who don't know a lot of things because they're educated in one particular subject, which is a problem. It's problematic to get caught up in too much information or too specific information, which is why I appreciate general education, like an associate's degree, right? I appreciate that because it's not too specific. And this is how the education system is set up. Is it set up where in high school, very general, all the way up until your third year of college, your junior year of college, most education is very general. It touches on a lot of different subjects: science, math, history, current events, health, physical education. There's a word for it. What was I thinking of? There's a word for it, but just general stuff. And then you get into college, and the first 2 years is very general, right? There's a lot of the 101 courses, and the ologies, right? Or the osophies, right? Psychology, philosophy, geology, right? Anthropology, psychiatry, psychology. Okay, so You get the ologies and you get the offices. They're pretty good, the 101s in general. Why? Because they touch on kind of all the elements that make up our world, right? There's philosophy, there's the geology, which is the natural landscape. There's psychology, which is the way the human brain, functions and thinks. Motivations, things like that, right? Why do people do what they do? What's the reasoning? What's the psychological reasoning behind what they do? And then just all kinds of studies within that field. And then there's like sociology, which is like the study of human behavior and human culture, right? You got anthropology, which is the study of historical human cultures, kind of tracing back to like human origins and like how we all got here and like all the cool stuff in there, right? And then there's here's a great class, lifespan psychology, which talks about like the motivations, what are people's motivations for each stage in their life, right? From adolescence to adulthood, right? To older age, etc. Great course, but so there's it's still very general on the on the undergraduate or the associate, the associate degree. Then when you get into your major, it gets specific, right? Okay, now you're studying communications, or you're studying whatever, right? Nursing, or it's very specific, which I think is good. I think that's a good model, right? But one of the problems I would say is that people get too specific and they study too much, so you can overdo it. You want to have a general basis for very general things. So you want to learn about all the things about our world, right? And even to some degree, philosophy, although you can get lost in philosophy because a lot of it is hypothetical. And anyway, but to some degree philosophy, which I believe that word means, if I'm not mistaken, it means the study of learning, or the study of, I forget what the actual breakdown of it means, but psychology is a great course. But people get caught up in either too much knowledge or too narrow of knowledge, right? They get caught up in like, you can waste a lot of time in just, pursuing vain knowledge. You want it to be applicable, and you want it to be interesting, and you want it to be something that you remember because it's important about life. You could learn about like something that just does not matter at all, like anime or something. You could learn about the history of anime and learn about all, I consider that vain. You want to learn about like why the world functions, how it functions. I think history is very important because we can learn a lot from history. History predicts the future. Things that happen in the past happen again in the future. You can learn a lot that way. It can help protect you. It can help, sort of help you figure out why the world is always in turmoil, or what's happening here. And then, and then there's just these crappy degrees like political science, although I'm sure there's some great information in political science, because it's interesting to learn why politicians do what they do, how governments function, or at least how they're supposed to function. It's good to learn like the basics of your own government, and how, what things your government set up, how the government is again functioning. So there's a lot of really good general information, and so this is kind of what I really wanted to touch on specifically, is just how interesting and how good the general information is that you're learning. But you can get caught up in the wrong type of learning. You can get caught up in the wrong in wasting too much time, right? So when you get a higher education, when you get a you learn these things, you're able to apply these things. It makes life more understandable. You have less fear, you have more understanding, and then again, it teaches you how to be fascinated with learning. And if you can, it can be its own reward, right? If you have good books, you have a lot of good books, you can learn how to live your life in a good way, etc. And you can learn how to one thing I learn a lot is nutrition. I study nutrition a lot. I study what types of foods to eat, what types of foods to avoid, right? This is where the application of learning can be the difference between living a long, healthy life or maybe getting disease and dying at a young age, right? If you don't learn these things, right? So that's an example of how important and how crucial learning can be, right? There's a saying out there that goes, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. I think that's kind of true in a lot of ways, which is why education is so important for helping us. Jesus, man, these people, very odd the way these people drive. Anyway, that guy drove by me once and pulled back, drove around again. Anyway, so yeah, that's just one example. So and I think some people, might be like, oh, that's obvious, that's just, yeah, you want to learn about something, and that's true, yeah. Yes, you want to, most people should learn, but I think there's a difference between so one thing I wanted to point out was, when you're learning, are you applying what you're learning to make money, right? So some people only learn for the purpose of making money. They're like, well, why would I want to learn anything or read anything or gain any knowledge if it's not directly applicable to make me money, right? Well, I would say this. First of all, you don't need books, or you don't need to learn anything as far as higher education, etc., to really make money. You, quote unquote, you don't need to do that, quote unquote. But it can seriously help you, because it can develop your character, it can develop your mind and the way you think. So yeah, you can just, let me go to a trade school. Actually, that's a smart move. I think people who are uneducated probably wouldn't even know, say, oh, I gotta go to a trade school. They probably wouldn't even have that wherewithal, right? They probably would just be like, oh man, I'm gonna try to be a manager at this restaurant, or I'm gonna try to be an insurance salesman, or I'm gonna try to do, and then they just kind of get stuck. They kind of just get stuck. That's that same van. Maybe they're lost. Anyway, they kind of just get stuck in these whatever jobs, and their brains don't develop. I think to some extent learning helps your brain develop. It's a muscle, I believe, and it helps in so many different ways, because once you develop the ability to learn, and you develop the ability to gain and retain knowledge, you learn how to speak better, you learn how to think better, you learn how to write better. That's another course I was going to talk about, which is English 101. Wonderful course. I would even say a film class. These are all courses that I took in college. Film class, English, history, you know. And if you get a good teacher, it's so important. If you get a good teacher, you can get a bad teacher, right? And you can get a so-so teacher. If you get a good teacher, you can gain so much. But I think also you have to, no way, not somebody else. I think also you have to have a sort of, I wouldn't say have to, but it's good to develop a sort of passion for learning. Because if you enjoy learning, wow, you can go so far. You can do so much. And I can't tell you how many people I come across who just, they don't have the ability to understand nuance. They don't have the ability to think abstractly. They don't have the ability to formulate intelligent, rational, coherent ideas and thoughts and reasoning and things like that. That's what higher education does for you. It teaches you how, it trains your brain, it exercises your brain, and it teaches you how to have higher level thinking, which is why it's so cool. It turns you into a higher being. It turns you into more of like a, I hate to say this word because it's not totally true, sort of a superhero in a way. You're not gonna be a superhero, but I'm saying like comparatively to someone who's uneducated, who doesn't know how to think, who doesn't know how to form and formulate rational thoughts and logic and things like that, you're a superhero compared to that person. You're superior to that person. And I'm not saying that in a narcissistic way. I'm not saying that for you to like, oh, I gotta lord it over this person, or I'm gonna be smarter than other people. Woo. Like there's a lot of people who they might be smart, but they're jerks, right? You don't want to be like that. You want to be well-rounded. You want to be humble. But it's cool to be educated. It's cool to be smart. It's cool to know stuff, right? It's cool to be able to reason and logic and gain information and be like, dang, this is, you know. And unfortunately, the flip side of that is it's dangerous, and it's evil, it's dangerous in the wrong hands because it is powerful, right? So, and you can study things from that angle as well. Why did these certain dictators get in? Why were they so charismatic? Or why did people, you know, follow them? And a lot of it is because they're intelligent. Name me like a dictator, an evil dictator who's not intelligent, right? Name me, and I'm sure there's one or two, right? For whatever reason, they got put into power, or they're puppets or whatever. You could say that, or whatever. But ones who came out of nowhere, ones who rose from the ranks of poverty into supreme leadership or whatever. They're educated, they're smart, they know how to deal with people, they know the art of negotiation, the art of, you know, they know psychology, they know how humans, you know, human motivations and things like that. This is why education is so important. So it teaches you how to think, and then I was going to say English 101 teaches you how to write. You learn how to write. You learn how to use big words, quote unquote, or good words that really sort of enunciate and, you know, help you explain yourself. People who are intelligent with the way they speak are more respected, more respectable, more trustworthy, more trusted. People who can coherently and intelligently talk and write are just more valuable. They're viewed as more valuable than somebody who's not. And so it's easy to just be like, oh, that person's dumb, or that person's uneducated. But why is that bad? Why is it bad to be not very smart? Why is it bad to be uneducated? Because it makes you weaker. Because people who are educated, people who have more knowledge, people who have trained their brains, etc., are smart, and who are smarter, are more powerful. You're more powerful, you're more respected, you're more trusted, etc. And if you apply it correctly, you can get things out of it. You can gain things. And again, I'm not saying in any kind of nefarious way. I'm not saying any kind of evil. I'm saying it can get you set up. It can get you help. It can get you finances. It can get you wealthy. But just because you're intelligent, higher educated, and smart doesn't guarantee wealth. There's a lot more that goes into it than just that. And you can have a great idea, you can have a great product, or you can come up with some great theorem or idea, and it might not go anywhere for various reasons. So it's not a guarantee. Don't look at it like that. But there's just so many benefits. So no, it doesn't directly necessarily get you money. It does if you have the degree, and somebody doesn't have the degree, that diploma piece of paper, right? But it can help you to have the tools, the mental, intellectual tools to make money, right? If you learn how to learn, you learn how to think, and you can save yourself a lot of time. There are some people who think that working hard is the end all. Oh, work harder, pick yourself up from your bootstraps, woo woo woo. This old school boomer talk, right? Well, it's not about working harder necessarily. Hard work is good in the right context. It's about working smarter, right? It's about working smarter and knowing what you're doing, right? I've made this mistake in my life where I thought that if I outwork people, if I work harder than other people, then I will, be better than them or gain something over them or whatever. Not necessarily the case. Talent comes into play, skill comes into play, execution comes into play, timing comes into play. So many things, you can consider luck maybe coming into play. So many things. But I will say that for the person, if you have the same amount of talent and skill as other people, a person who works harder is going to be the best, right? If all other things are even, all other things considered are even, then if you work harder than others, you probably will be the best. That's just logical, right? But again, something could come along and take you out. Something could come along and malign your intentions. We don't know. That's life, right? But that's another good thing, is that when you have a general education and you know a lot about a lot of different things, if one avenue doesn't work out for you, you still have a skill set that you can take into other avenues, right? If you're intelligent, if you're well spoken, if you're well thought, if you reason well, and say you have good people skills, or you have a good understanding of psychology, or you have a good understanding of speaking to people, which you can learn. You take a speech class. Took a speech class in college, right? Again, there's another course that can help people very much in life. Take a speech class. If you have these skills, you can apply them in different avenues. So education is very important, guys. I hope that it's something that is becoming more common. Because again, I can't tell you how many times I meet people, on social media, right? Talk to people on social media, and it's easy to tell how intelligent they are. Listen to what they're saying, listen to the words they're using, or, read what they're saying, read the words they're using, right? Understand their thought process, right? And when you get more educated, when people, it's like being a professional athlete, right? Once you're a professional athlete, you can tell when other people aren't professional, right? You can just tell because you're a professional. You know what it takes. You've been through the system. You've graduated from certain, you've taken your hits, you paid your dues, right? You're a professional. You're gonna know when somebody else hasn't paid their dues, when somebody else hasn't taken their hits, right? When somebody else hasn't failed like you failed and got up and kept trying, whatever. There's things that people can't go through or won't go through because they don't want to suffer. They want their what's the word? They want their cake. That's not right. They want instant gratification. There we go. They want instant gratification. It takes discipline. It takes character to get a good grade in a college course, to learn the subject, not just mindlessly repeat things or whatever and then forget it after the college course is over or whatever, to actually go and sit through the lectures, to be attentive, maybe sit in the front row, right? Learn with the intention of, broadening your own logical and intellectual powers, right? That's a weird statement, but it's true. Each day, each hour, is a kind of sacrifice, is a kind of discipline, right? A lot of people don't have the discipline to do that, right? Now, you could make the argument that while you were sitting in that class, learning, I was out here working and making money, so I got something. I got to see a return on it that you never did, or whatever that it depends. It depends. It's like, first of all, what is your benefit? Okay, you went out and you sold your body for labor or whatever you did to make that money. Usually selling your time, selling your body or whatever, in one way or another. And you get an instant reward. You get that money. But then you spend that money and it's gone, right? So you're stuck in this system of making money and then spending money. Whereas if you gain knowledge, that's something that can stick with you your whole life. That's a treasure chest that you just have. It's there. Trust me, it's there. You might think, I went to college and I spent all this time and I learned all this stuff and I don't recall any of it. I don't remember any of it. That doesn't mean it's not there necessarily. It doesn't mean, maybe the details are not there, but you gained something from that. Trust me, you did. And you gained, when you're putting in time like that, you're gaining character, and you're also gaining, something that's very intrinsic, right? Whereas, okay, I go and I'm doing this job or whatever, and I'm making this money. Okay, it's over. And then you see people in this perpetual cycle of I'm out here making money. I'm making money. I'm on the grind, blah, blah, blah. I'm on the grind. And it's I'm not dissing making money. That's cool. We all need to make money, right? But again, I would argue that that's more transient, right? And that dissipates a lot faster than knowledge, because knowledge is something that's in your mind and it sticks with you. I remember things from 20 years ago. I remember things from 30 years ago, right? I remember details. I remember books that I read. I'm not saying I recall everything, because I certainly don't, but there's just so much benefit. There's so much benefit that's intrinsic benefit. Yeah, you're not going to see money right away from it, right? Not right away. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, or it might come quicker, right? But you're learning how to learn. You're gaining. I think you guys get my point. Okay, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? Yeah, man, it's powerful. Learn, and you can teach yourself. You don't necessarily have to go, actually take a course, but you can, and I would recommend it. I'd recommend doing both. Teach yourself, and I would say try to cultivate the thirst for learning. Try to cultivate the thirst for, if you can, the thirst for knowledge, to at least some significant healthy extent, because you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to underdo it, right? It's good to have just a general thirst and pursuit of learning things. And here's another thing. It's beneficial for your mental health. It's beneficial for longevity, right? Someone who's always learning, and another thing, you want to be able to implement structure. Structure is a good word. You should take that word, keep that word, structure. That's a good word. You want structure. You want to compartmentalize. So you can't spend all day learning about a subject, or even just all day learning in general. You need to make money. You need to have relationships. You need to be a normal human being. You need to eat good food. You need to exercise. You need to have entertainment. You need to laugh. You need to have enjoyment, right? And even, I would say, artistic expression in some form, right? These are all healthy things. And again, how did I know all these things? How did I know that I needed those things? I read, I learned, right? This is the thing, is that if you don't read, you don't learn, right? You don't know what's good or bad for you in your life. You don't know how to function in your life. You don't know how to carry out a good and normal functioning life, right? A lot of times people are in these pits, and they're in these depressions, and they're in these funks in their life. They're in these negative down seasons because they really don't know how to learn. And so I think learning can be a revolutionary act, right? Learning can be a revolutionary act, but you need structure, right? You need to be able to compartmentalize it in a healthy way. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to underdo it. And I would say, I would recommend everybody to take formal college courses. Go and get if you don't have one, go and get your GED. Figure that out, because you can't get into college without one. Get that, right? And then you get accepted. Once you're accepted, you're in the system. Your name's there, so you don't have to keep proving that you got a GED or whatever, because the college will look at the past colleges you've been to and they'll be like, okay, they already got accepted, blah, blah, blah. If you are on financial aid, be very careful, because they only give you a specific amount of time to use that financial aid, and then it dries up. I made that mistake, and my college financial aid dried up, and that was not fun, because I had no more funding. But it is what it is, and I'm so thankful for the college that I did get. I'm thankful that I was poor enough to get financial aid, because I probably wouldn't have been able to afford it, because a lot of people can't. But if you can afford it, or if you can get financial aid, do it. Take advantage of it. The benefits are, and I've probably done a poor job even at explaining a lot of this, because again, like I said, I was walking earlier, and I had a better, a lot of my videos are based on momentum, or inspiration at the time. And to some extent I had to go back and get my phone, right? So I'm probably not as inspired as I was, and now I've been walking for almost an hour talking. So, but anyway, yeah, if you can, take college courses. If you got the money, I know it's a couple thousand or whatever, it's worth it, man. It's worth it. But you got to take the right ones. Find the right courses that are really that you're interested in, because you don't want to take something that you're not interested in. You don't want to take something that's boring. You don't want to take something where you dread it, because I think that's a waste of money, and I think it's a waste of time. Always take stuff that you're interested in. Take something that fascinates you. Biology. A lot of people are fascinated with biology, physics, right? Mathematics, whatever floats your boat. Take it. Take the general courses. It's good to have a general knowledge of a lot of things. And then I would say, for some people, it's good to have a very specific knowledge of things. It's good to have a very specific focus and what some might call an expertise in a certain field. That's good, if it's applicable and if you're passionate about it, and hopefully if it makes you money, because it's one thing to I'm super knowledgeable about biology, but if it doesn't do anything for you, then it's just kind of a waste of time. Where hey, you know what? Instead of being an expert at biology, maybe I can learn a lot of other stuff that I could actually apply to my life, or that will actually benefit me, right? Now, hey, if there's people out there that I'm just fascinated with anime, it's my hobby, right? You know what? If it makes you happy, do it, right? There's a saying out there that says, time spent doing something that makes you happy is not wasted, right? Time spent doing something that makes you happy is not wasted. And I believe in that firmly. You could be doing something totally asinine, doing something totally, irrelevant, but if it makes you happy, it's worth it, because ultimately, that's life, right? We want to be pleased, we want to be happy. You don't want to a lot of people do this. A lot of people forego their own happiness, forego their own enjoyment of life for some kind of sacrificial goal. Oh, I want to be rich, so I don't take any time out to laugh, or I don't take any time out of my day to enjoy art or appreciate nature. You got to be well-rounded, because these are the type of people that maybe they do become rich, but they become sociopaths or they become narcissists along the way. Because the way that, the way the human mind works is we're trying to find peace of mind, and we're trying to find happiness, and we're trying to find purpose, and we're trying to find satisfaction. That's the basics of what makes a human tick, right? And a lot of that is wrapped up in spirituality. A lot of that is wrapped up in health, right? A lot of that is wrapped up in relationships, right? So do the things that are important for human satisfaction, do the things that are important for you and your future, or if you're this type of personality, do something that is important for other people, that helps other people, because indirectly that benefits you if you're that type of personality. There's a lot of personalities out there who want to help others, who feel this deep sense and need to serve others and to help others, and those people are wonderful. We need those people in our world. So the other thing is that when you learn all this general stuff, it just helps you understand life better. It helps you understand why the world functions the way it does. Helps you understand your environment, right? For instance, even your physical environment, your topographical environment. Study geology. You learn what type of region you live in. Do I live in a rainforest? Do I live in a desert area? Do I live in a urban area? Do I live in a mountainous area, etc.? Right? Why is that important? It's not crucial. It's not life or death information, but it just helps you understand your environment. When you understand your environment, you're more comfortable and you're more confident in life. When you understand how your government works, when you understand, how politics works, which again politics is just a pit, it's a black hole. It can be. But if you understand the way it functions, then you can maybe, you can be a part of the change of it, you can be part of benefiting of it, things like that. If it's applicable to your immediate world, which is why psychology is so important. Helps you understand human motivation, helps you understand, why people do what they do, right? Why people lie, or why people, do this or that, or why people tell the truth, or why people love, or why people, you know, whatever, motivations, things like that. And then spirituality, you know, learn about different religions, learn about God, learn about, you know, you kind of got, you know, if you want to be better at studying the Bible, say you're a Christian, you want to be better at studying the Bible, it requires some education, right? It requires some learning. You got to find the right sources. You got to learn how to decipher the right types of ministries, how to understand the Bible, how do you find the correct translation, how do you, you know, et cetera, right? That's just a microcosm of all things, you know. Say you're interested in cars. Well, how do I learn how to fix cars? You got to find the right information. You got to find the books, and then you study them. It's just, that's all learning is. Finding a book, studying it, getting a teacher, learning from that teacher, right? And you can get what's it called? I forgot the word for it. But you can get a personal coach or a personal mentor, a personal teacher, you know, to help you learn a subject better, for instance, right? Various multitude of different ways. One of the best ways, I say, is just get a library card. It's free. Get a library card. I used to do this all the time when I was younger. I haven't done it in a long time because of the internet. But get a library card, go to the library, check out 20 books, learn. It's like eating. You're digesting this information, you're learning things, learning how business works, learning how entrepreneurship works, learning how anything, you know. If you could find that passion to learn, it can benefit you in so many ways. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you listening. I'm going to end it there. Tired after my long walk, tired after this long talk. But if you listen this far, I appreciate you, and I hope that, you know, people would gain the right information and improve. So, with that said, hope you're all having a good summer. Take care. Peace.